Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and I'm absolutely thrilled today to have with me Gina Cotner from Athena Executive Services. First of all, Gina, thank you for taking the time to visit with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tom.
Gina, could you tell our audience about your professional background?
Yeah, I am currently the founder and CEO of Athena Executive Services, and I founded it about 9.5 years ago. And everything that led before that was just a myriad of small businesses, seemingly random things. But now looking back on it, they were all the perfect background to lead to where I am today. Some corporate experience and some owning my own small businesses.
One of the things that has intrigued me and why I wanted to take this time to visit with you is about the mission of Athena and really your leadership philosophy. We're going to take a little bit deeper dive into that later, but could you maybe highlight why you believe that team culture is the most important thing, and then how you help to embed that in your organization?
Yeah, boy, it's a vast world. It organically came to be our team culture, but the culture, or I might say like the water you swim in, so affects how people perform. What level of excellence are they going to operate at? What level of accountability are they going to operate at? Has a whole lot to do with the culture or the context or the water that they are operating inside of. And it's become a big part of our culture slowly over time. I mean, in the beginning, it was just me. That was just me and the voice in my head. That was the culture. But now 20 people later, there's a very healthy culture.
One of the reasons I love podcasting is I hear great lines and I get to purloin. And it was me and the voice in my head. That's exactly me, except I don't have 20. I still got me and the voice in my head. That's great. I'm sure you'll be incredibly pleased to know that the regulators in the form of the US government and specifically the Department of Justice in 2024 recognized that culture is an important part of how they assess a corporation for potential legal violations. And about half the audience, maybe 60% of this audience is corporate types. So chief compliance officers, other chief executives, CISO, CFO, CEO, COO, et cetera. So they are very interested in culture and building culture. And so could you maybe start with why you believe that making accountability a cultural standard in an organization is not really, it's not simply an imperative, but actually makes you a better company?
Yeah, it does. I wish it was an imperative, but high performers, everybody wants high performing cultures and a high performing team. Well, high performers like to be in a culture of accountability. They don't shy away from it. In fact, you put a high performer in a not very accountable culture, they won't stay there very long because they like to be around strong players, like to be around other strong players, and they like to be recognized for being strong. And accountability is a level of ownership. And when you've got a team of people who are all invested in ownership, I own what I'm doing. I say what I'm going to do. I do what I'm going to say. I raise my hand and go, oops, I didn't do that. That was on me. That's me. It creates a culture where there's just so much trust, but we can also go fast. We can run hard. We can run fast because we're not afraid to go, oh, that was my bad. Oh, that was my hurdle. Oh, I'll help you. Now you're going to help me. Wait a minute. Hold on. I need a moment. I need a help. Okay, let's go. But it's all high performing. If you don't have a commitment to excellence or high performance, then you don't really have to worry about accountability.
That is so great. Why do you think accountability is misunderstood? I understand perhaps being avoided, but talk to us about the misunderstanding part.
Yeah, I love that question. I want to talk about that question for an hour because it really is misunderstood and it is avoided. And frankly, I think we as humans learned that by the time we were about 5. We learned very, very early on to avoid getting caught, and we are hardwired to, want to look good in any situation. Certainly don't get blamed, right? We have a culture. This isn't a new culture. This has been our societal culture for a long, long time. Who's to blame? Well, who's to blame there? Well, that awful thing happened. Who's to blame? Who's to blame? And so we very early on learn, do the best I can, but more importantly than anything, make sure I don't take the blame. And, CYA, cover your you know what, is a big part of corporate culture. It's risky. Why is it avoided? Because it's risky. It's risky to be accountable. You have to have a willingness to look bad or to maybe be considered in this meeting that we're in, say, to be wrong. So we miss then the opportunity to really say how it's going to go, but we're caught because if I say how it's going to go, if I really say I'm going to have that done by Friday, now I'm at risk, as opposed to saying, well, I'm working on it. We have so many team cultures are, I'm working on it. And everybody really is working on it. But nobody's going to put a stake in the ground and say, I'm going to have that done by Friday, Tom. So then you can work on that thing and you can have your part done by next Tuesday. And then Fred's going to pick up the ball and we're going to get into the end zone with the client by when we said we would. But that requires being willing to be at risk and say, I'm going to actually do what I said I'm going to do by when I said I'd do it. So, there's a lot. There's a lot to be said about why we all avoid to some degree or want to misunderstand accountability.
So does accountability start with the leader saying, I am accountable? Does accountability start with a relationship? How do you start to build this culture of accountability?
Yes, and yes, and yes to all that. So I think a simple way to start is in every meeting, everywhere you can, you're always asking when. So when it could be a client, could be a vendor, it could be somebody who reports to you, it could be somebody you report to. But a key word is when. When will that be done? When will you have time to complete that? When will you let me know that that's done? When? If everything has a when attached to it, that's the beginning of it. And then the next part is really to consistently care as the leader, as the boss, care about that when that somebody gave you, that deadline that somebody gave you. If somebody gives you a deadline and you don't note it and you don't care and you don't notice it, they're going to stop giving you deadlines because they don't have to be at risk. You're not going to notice anyway. But if you're a leader or you're a boss who always notices, I mean, you're like gravity. You're just consistent like gravity. And Tom says, I'm going to have that done by Friday at noon. And I look and I notice Tom had that done by Friday at noon. I shoot Tom a little note and say, I saw you. Saw the thing you said you'd do. It's really great. Thank you so much. That's all there is to do. Notice. And then you're going to notice also when it doesn't get done. I notice it's 12:30 and I notice that's not there. And now that's a whole other conversation we're going to have that leads to how you actually develop people. But it just really starts by asking when and then caring and noticing and either saying thank you or having a conversation about why it didn't get done. And the more you're related, the more we are related as humans, we have a good, solid relationship, the easier it is for me to do that.
You're right. We could have talked about this for hours.
Yeah.
We're going to have to move on to another word because this next word, frankly, I'm not sure I've ever heard talked about in the corporate context, but it may be for me, it's one of the most important words, and that's consistency. So, and you even posit that consistency can help create and foster psychological safety. So could we explore that a little bit?
Yeah. Every meeting I'm in and all the time I'm asking when, it becomes not weird. It becomes like, why is she asking me when? Or she followed up with me, or somebody goes home and says, oh, my boss threw me under the bus. No, your boss just asked you, why wasn't that done? Or what do you need from me? Or what got in the way? But if every single time I'm asking when and every single time I'm following up, it just becomes, that's just how we are. That's just how it is around here. And pretty soon people within your organization start doing it with each other. in a way that isn't, when are you going to get that done? Like, I'm putting the screws to you to make sure you fully perform. No, it's more, let me know when you're going to have that done so then I can plan accordingly. And then I can make promises to the client or the vendor or who knows what. So when you are consistently asking when and you're consistently following up, it becomes part of the water that people swim in. But again, if what's running in the background is my relationship with you, meaning I have your back, I am for you. I'm not asking when and following up to see if I can get you and prove that you weren't really doing what you said. No, I'm following up with you because I'm your champion. I'm your boss. I am that on my watch, you're going to win. Okay, well, that's where the psychological safety comes in. So my two managers run my company and they know I'm so for them. And we have such a great relationship for so many years. I can get pretty dang hot with them and they don't get scared. They still feel like they're in a safe environment because they know Gina has my back. Gina's just mad about the performance of this particular thing. She's not mad at me. She's mad about this deadline not getting met. So I have a lot of room to swim with them because I've been so consistent for so long.
So that's interesting because when I heard that word and then I said that word, I thought of my responsibility as an employee. And my responsibility, so I was Joe Jock in high school. So I have all those, stupid teenage boy football tapes playing in my head. One of which is you have to earn it every day. And I still believe that. And so, when I come to work every day, I sit in front of my computer. I have to bring my best to everything I do. And just like preparing for this podcast with you. And so I don't see that as a leadership issue. I see it as a server or service issue. One, but two, I tell people I need two things. I need the date you want it due, and I need how long you want it. That's the only questions I need to know. And I will hit that mark. And so when I get sometimes with new clients or new people and I get those when questions, I'm like, shut the bleep up. I told you it would be there Thursday at noon. It will be there. I don't want to hear anymore. And then, of course, they say, no, 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 just checking in. I'm like, stop it. So, how can I moderate that in myself? Because I feel like that's my promise to me, not even to the customer or to the client. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, everybody wants to hire a you. I mean, that's part of it. You hope to hire people that operate like that. And I'm not going to baby people. I'm not going to hold people's hand all the time. I want people to perform just like that. And it might take a little while within a particular team for people to know, well, Tom always does what he says he's going to do. So if he says he's going to do it by Friday, he's going to do it by Friday. You'd be fool to bother him between now and then. But people, and that is the beauty of it. When you get inside an accountable culture, is pretty soon people really do become reliable. And then there is a lot less noise because you really can count on each player on the team. It's just not always like that in the beginning. And then we could have a whole other podcast about the younger generations that are rising up, right? And what do they need? They didn't pull up
I'm going to
the way
stop you
you
right
did.
now and say
Yeah.
we are going to have another podcast.
Okay.
I've already
Okay.
decided that. But that aside, Gina, yeah, we have 5 generations at work and we all respond differently. I'm 68, my daughter's 27. We respond to different stimuli and different motivations. So we may have more than one podcast coming down the road. But before I so rudely interrupted you, I wanted to ask you about you as a leader have communicated what your expectations are. The to your team leads have communicated that down. But how does that consistency of communication, when you get to the bottom, how does the team itself sort of inherently get that consistency and make that a norm for new employees so that Gina doesn't have to say this is the way we do it here because everybody says this is the way we do it here.
Yeah. Well, one thing that makes your life a lot easier if it's in the interviewing process. So if you start way upstream before somebody even comes on board, in our vetting and screening process, it's slow and it's annoying on purpose. Um, But we let people know multiple times, this is a coaching and correction culture. So in this culture, this is what we do. Now, obviously, we could shoot ourselves in the foot in week one if we don't actually do what we say in our culture, but it can start we can weed people out early on who don't want to be coached and corrected. And we give them that example. Now, how does it work all the way down to the boots on the ground, so to say? And this is a fun other podcast. How do you get your intention fulfilled 2 layers deep in the org chart? Right. So I've got to be the way I say I'm being with my 2 managers, but now I'm also inspecting that Jennifer and Dorian are being that way with all of their reports. Because if we're not all role modeling it every day, it's not going to fly. But if we are, then the boots on the ground get it. They go, oh, yeah, this company, they're just pretty soon people will proactively tell you when. They will say, oh, they'll be in the meeting going, yeah, I'm going to have that done by Tuesday. Good. And I'll let you know that. So anyway, it can get all the way down, but it is about being consistent and role modeling it.
I certainly understand follow up as a part of a coaching tool, but you take it a step further because you say it can be a leadership tool. Can you explain how follow up can actually be a leadership tool and maybe give some examples of how you have used this?
Yeah, it's how I develop people. I realized it's how I got developed to be a leader. So I do lead that way, but it's because I want other leaders rising up around me, grabbing and taking parts of my company or parts of your department and running with it, not just being really good workers. You want people to really own it. Well, that comes from holding people accountable every single day. So if Jennifer says she's going to have X done by Monday and I notice it's not done now and I want to develop her, I go to this is my whole key phrase. What got in the way? What got in the way? I don't want to hear a bunch of reasons. And every now and then people will start down the, well, let me tell you. So I called Mr. Johnson and Mr. Johnson was on vacation and then this happened. I'm like, just stop right there. I don't even want to know everything that happened. I trust you. You did the best you could and it didn't turn out. Now let's look what got in the way. And it always will develop people and you, the boss, will discover some gold. You're either going to discover what got in the way was a way that they were. There might be a circumstance that's happening in their life, which I promise you, if it is, it's not the first time. It might be something in your organization that's not working well. They're doing the very best they can, but they keep bumping up this same thing in your organization. Okay, well, that's something for you to fix as a leader. You're going to discover gold if you ask what got in the way. And then the other thing that's going to develop them as leaders is, again, they know you're never going to not notice whether they got something done or not. And the leaders will rise and people who don't want that will stop working for you. And you're going to stop messing with them after the third time they haven't done what they said. You're going to start to find out maybe I have the wrong person on the bus or I have the right person on the bus in the wrong seat.
And I'll just tell you, I thought you had another podcast where we're going to take everything you've said and I'm going to translate it into compliance speak because what you described was a root cause analysis. So, absolutely. How do you balance this type of feedback or follow up with compassion? Because not everybody is going to react to this the same. Now, you've talked about how you have communicated expectations, starting with your hiring process. So I understand that you've communicated these expectations, but are there tiers? Do people understand the purpose of this? If there are tiers, does that mean someone's disqualified from working with you going down the road? How do you handle the compassion part of Gina?
Yeah. Well, it comes first. So there's never tiers. Again, because what's more important is my relationship with you. So I'm making sure my relationship with you is strong and growing and intact. And it prevails, in fact, this is going to sound very controversial, over the work. So yesterday, my EA, my own executive assistant, um, it's Monday morning and we had made a mistake on Friday and we were going to fix it on Monday. And I am just dying to see that email go out. I just am like, when is that email going to get out? But the first question I ask her in the morning via text is good morning. And it's not, when is that email going to get out? Because I know she knows that. My first question is, how are you? And how's your dad? Because something's going on with their dad. So I almost always lead with my human to human relationship. How are you? And again, I start every meeting with how are you? And it's not a throwaway question. I'm actually curious because whatever I'm now about to delegate or follow up on is going to be on top of how you are. And your mom just went into the hospital this weekend and you just had a big fight with your husband and your dog got hit by the neighbor and all this stuff of life, I'm now operating on top of as your boss. So I'm actually curious, how are you? So that's another thing to be very consistent about. Be interested in your people and be concerned for them as human beings. Then they'll do anything. Then after that, I can say to my EA, okay, your dad's still in the hospital, but he's doing okay. That's really great to hear. All right, good. And when are you going to, when does it work for you to get to this email? Because I know she's juggling a lot, right? People are juggling a lot in their life. So you've got to be compassionate about they have life going on, not just your email. So it's tending to that and small things, right? I'm just always acknowledging and appreciating people because I know there's going to be a day where we're going to be in the trenches together and I need them to know I've got your back. I love you. Frankly, I'm your champion. And right now we got a problem to solve. And then they never question my support for them. As long as they know I'm their biggest champion, I'm their greatest supporter, then I can hold them to account all day long. And it's not my supporting them is not in question.
How do you walk the fine line between accountability and fear-based compliance? We've danced around that throughout this podcast, but I really wanted to maybe ask you that directly. Is there a line, or did you actually just answer it by saying, no, I lead with compassion? And so that people understand if I have to have a difficult conversation, it's a conversation about a difficult topic. It's not a difficult conversation.
Yeah. And you're not a difficult person. See, people are so quick to go, boy, what I really need is I need a new whatever manager. Let me go find a new person. Oh, you hired that person. I mean, partly I want that person to win because we hired them. We took them through our process. I'd like us to be right about. I don't really want to spend all the money to go through that again. So here's the thing. Yes, it is all leading with compassion. But if you look at just the opposite, let's just go back to fear-based, right? Do it or else. Then the impact is people will lie. They'll do what they can get by with. They'll hedge their bet and they'll give you all the good reasons why they didn't get done because it's all going to be about staying out of trouble. Now you get a whole culture of staying out of trouble versus high performance.
So, if you had three key tips for any senior executive or leader on implementing a culture of accountability, could we distill it down to three?
Yeah. Ask when all the time. Just always ask when. When will that be done? When will that be done? Number two, you as the boss have to write it down. That can't be a throwaway. You've got to care about that when. And then three, right after that due date, follow up and either say thank you or what got in the way.
Gina, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted to connect with you and or find out any more information about Athena Executive Services, what would be the best place or places for them to go?
Yeah. To find me personally, LinkedIn is the best. So just go look up Gina Cotner on LinkedIn and you'll find me out there. And I really do respond to LinkedIn reliably. And if you want to learn about Athena Executive Services, I highly recommend our website, athenaexecutiveservices.com.
Well, Gina, this has been one of the most delightful podcasts I have ever done. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but this was not it. And this was great. I have two metrics for a successful podcast and only two. Number one, how much did I learn? And number two, how much fun did I have? And I scored 11 on both. So I wanted to thank you. And like I said, I rarely say, I know we're going to have more, but I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to ask you to come back. This was great.
great. I really look forward to it.
Compliance Podcast Network. Start your mornings with daily compliance news, quick, sharp updates on the top compliance and ethics stories in under 5 minutes every morning in Compliance Podcast Network. Because compliance never sleeps. Need practical advice fast? Check out Compliance Tip of the Day. One actionable idea to level up your program. Short and sweet, every day on Compliance Podcast Network. Got 10 minutes? We've got the week's top 10 stories. 10 for 10 brings you the big compliance headlines. Fast, fun, and focused. Every Saturday on Compliance Podcast Network. And don't miss the Sunday Book Review, where compliance meets culture through must-read books and big ideas every Sunday in Compliance Podcast Network. Whether you're in the office, on a walk, or commuting, stay smart, stay ethical, stay tuned. Only on the Compliance Podcast Network. Available wherever you listen to podcasts.